you end up kind of trying a few different things, and depending on the time of day, you end up being in a different light, or again, depending on what section of this area that I use. And even this is going to be this is actually going to be the first episode with this setup. We did do one like this with Harrison in Harrison's episode, but like I said, I accidentally deleted footage off of one of the cameras on my end, so that was my bad.
It's not a very controllable environment. That's the issue.
It's not, no. So I kind of like the rawness of it, though. There was a guy that had some inspiration from seeing some of the other pods that when it's like a perfect studio setup is wonderful, but I also saw it really work when it was just like this very sort of raw kind of open environment, and you realize you're still engaging with the conversation that's going on, you're still enjoying it, you're still happy to tune in and engage with the characters, even though it's you've got sirens going off in the background, and you've got wind and rain and all sorts of stuff going on, and you can kind of be very forgiving about it not being... I'm definitely not going to tell that story. I have told that story off camera a few times, but maybe a little bit too sensitive.
That's all right.
Whilst we're recording.
It's what I've noticed with podcasts, especially myself. Like when I listen to them, it's almost like you're part of that friendship group when you've never met them in your life, but you feel part of it. You're joking with them, you're laughing about their stories about their kids and stuff like that. And I think that's what a lot of people do with podcasts.
Probably weird for the podcaster though, right? Because
100%.
They've got all these people listening to them, know who they are, and they're walking around, and somebody probably approaches them like, "Hey man," and they're like, "Hey."
That's a lot with celebrities as well, social media. This is where the world comes into now with you're in everyone's pocket with social media.
Yeah, I think what's been really interesting, because you mentioned celebrities there, and once upon a time, celebrity used to mean Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
the big names.
Sigourney Weaver, Pamela Anderson, whatever, right? Madonna, Kylie, so on, so on, so on. And we still have really big celebrity names that are known for their artwork, movies, music, media. Donald Trump is a celebrity technically.
He is. He was in Home Alone. You remember that Home Alone scene?
Actually, don't. Oh yeah, he
at
was.
The reception when he was asking for directions.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, he's been in a few things, to be fair. So he's got a solid, a varied portfolio. But last, I don't know, 10 years, because of social media, fitness people became celebrities.
Yes.
And every personal trainer then was right, not every personal trainer, but a lot.
Good majority.
Yeah, we're right, I'm going to get after it. And I don't blame them, because it's actually a fantastic opportunity. Post content online. If you do get traction, you do build an audience. And for some people, it's paid off in a crazy way, where they're making loads of money. And maybe, to a much more nobler extent, they're having a good influence on getting more people into fitness as a result. And I don't know anyone off the top of my head in that regard, but yeah, it's been huge. So now people will come up to you and they will tell you about, have you heard of so-and-so? Have you seen so-and-so? It can be a little bit annoying, right?
I saw something on TikTok once, and, can we try this today?
All right. But yeah, you kind of now when you think of celebrity, it's not the same thing anymore. And we're in the gym, and Mike Thurston might pop up, right? And the fact that I've said Mike Thurston, and you knew who I was talking about.
He has a very good body. I'll give him that.
Right? And he's a huge YouTuber in the fitness space.
Yeah.
But there's probably a bunch of people listening to this right now that don't have a clue who Mike Thurston is. I don't really actually consume much of Mike Thurston's content.
I do not.
He's been mentioned to me by a couple other people, and then the way these devices are listening to you, then he starts popping up on my algorithm. And I've seen he's got his own podcast, and he's interviewed some people that I would have maybe listened to on another podcast anyway.
Yeah.
And then funnily enough, I actually saw him walking around the gym maybe a couple of months ago.
Oh yeah.
The one that I work at. He was kind of just passing by, probably just to check out if he was going to work out in it. Obviously, he wasn't going to work out there. We're not going to.
Well, it's a good gym.
It's all right, but it's not the Dubai super gyms that he's used to.
Yes.
And there was, very briefly, there was a guy that they hired, this personal trainer. He was only there for a short while, and he was a bit of a road man, right?
Okay.
And like, he wasn't very professional. He was a nice guy, but he struggled like straight off the bat, because it's not quite the environment to come in and try and be, you know, like sort of like the big man on campus. So he's come in, and I think what's happened is Mike Thurston's walked through the door, and then he's got all excited and a bit like, yeah, I'll show you around. So this is a personal trainer, and personal trainers never show anybody around, right?
Nope.
So I'm just like training my client in the gym, and then I see him like, he's all kind of like jumping up and down and like, yeah.
Some people who idolize these people,
Yeah.
like we said, celebrities.
And you could see the excitement that was there. And Mike Thurston's obviously just like awkwardly kind of like walking around with this guy like, yeah, I probably didn't even want to go this far into the tour, but cool. So it was just a weird moment of kind of like watching him walk past, and then I kind of clocked what had happened with this guy. He left like within, I don't know, 2 months or something.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention any names or anything like that, but
This is what a lot of the industry is as well. Being in the industry for more than 10 years now, makes me sound so old. See all sorts of different shapes, especially more so recently. So I worked for a I'll say budget gym when I disappeared from London for a while, and the amount of fluctuation of PTs and the like in and out constantly. We hire someone new, they leave. Hire someone new, we leave. It's just it's scary, because a lot of these like PT programs are, or worst case, we start from the source. They see someone on Instagram where, like we said, the Mike Thurston and stuff like that. Mike Cheng, do you remember Mike Cheng, six-pack abs?
oh wow, he was big at one point, man.
He's gone a completely different direction now, but that's another, we'll talk about that later.
Oh great, he's gonna start popping up on my YouTube now that you said it.
He's not doing abs now, let's just say that.
Wow, okay.
A lot of breath work, which is very good.
Okay, wow.
But again, we'll go back to the story again. And you see people going in and out, and it comes to that sort of thing. I think it was actually someone that we both know who said it. You could literally have all the qualifications in the world, but if you can't talk to people and get to the foundation of people, you're not gonna do anything, because, like, at the end of the day, it's a people job. Personal training's people. Fitness is there, but it's people first.
Yeah, I think it's actually important for people to be able to now differentiate between what is a social media fitness influencer and what is a personal trainer, group exercise instructor, like that actually works in a facility.
Yeah.
Because those two things, they are different and they cross over, because personal trainers and group fitness instructors many of them aspire to be the fitness influencer as well. And there's a lot of fitness influencers that have never actually worked one-on-one with somebody, never actually run a class.
Yeah.
They have done, like, they've worked out themselves. They just happen to be a very good looking person, and then they probably worked really hard at creating content and getting themselves out there. And then obviously they're giving advice, they're running programs and all the rest of it, but a lot of the time they might not actually be the one delivering the actual training itself. So
Yeah.
that becomes like, it's a brand, it's marketing, and then actually working with people, a whole different ball game. And yeah, I think people coming into the industry now, viewing the front end, which is fitness influencer, then getting into a gym or a studio, and then kind of being like, hold on a minute, where's, like, you know, where are all the ripped people,
all the booty bands,
and you know, where's the Lamborghini and the private jet? Why is somebody not walking around following me around with a a HD 4K camera? Why am I wearing a name badge?
And a uniform that I've been told I have to wear.
Yeah, it kind of throws people off. So there's definitely, like, I had a lot of conversation with Harrison, who you'll know. And actually, to that note, I'm just going to quickly pause here for a moment, because we haven't actually introduced you, have we?
Oh no. How you doing?
What's up, Jason? Welcome to the podcast.
Lovely to be here.
For the context of the audience, Jason, what do you do?
I'm a group fitness instructor, but I would like to say I'm a coach first.
Okay.
Definitely. I've gone away from the PT world as much. I do take on a few clients, but my main thing is group exercise.
Where do you where do you run a lot of the classes?
In central London now. So I took a break 2 years ago, and I'm back in, when did I start? July now. So okay. I've really come in, hit the ground running. I teach at a few studios and just never looked back since. Okay,
you dotted about. So I know Jason from. He used to work in the same place I currently work now. So I've been working in my club for 5 years, and actually you were already there. You were the group exercise manager actually when I started working there, and you were running classes as well. And then. Actually, I don't feel like we got to know each other straight away. It was maybe like a year before we actually start to get a little bit more familiar with each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were definitely like very well regarded by a lot of the members.
Stop flirting with me. Stop it.
It's the truth.
You already have my heart.
You were definitely a fan favorite. Like really big character when you're running your classes, definitely put on a show. And I remember, the effort that you used to, like, you'd be sitting there in the office and you'd be going through track after track, trying to like lace it all together really, really well, not everybody does that, right?
Yeah.
I do see some people do that, and I don't think people truly get the extent to what goes into making like a really good group exercise class, and people turning up, and maybe the assumption is that the company has kind of put the soundtrack together and the company has put the workout together, and they have to some extent, but the actual instructor themselves has like so much work to do to make it run in the sequence that it runs, make it smooth, make sure everybody's looked after, make sure everybody's attended to, make sure everybody's safe. And I think when you are in those classes and you're looking at the instructor, and the instructor comes across as confident, like as if it's like, nothing to them, but like so much goes in to the class, not just during the class, but prior to the class. And, you were definitely an example of that. I suppose that's one of the things I'd be curious about, because I haven't done any group exercise stuff for like maybe like almost 20 years, right? I did it maybe near enough at the beginning, and then I kind of like avoided it after that because it wasn't my thing. So as far as group exercise classes are concerned, what do you think makes a good group exercise class?
Me personally, I think it's, structure and experience. So the structure in terms of the programming or what you're doing, again, some places do that for you. For example, F45 and your other boutique studios. And then experience. The experience is when you walk in. As soon as you walk in, are you greeted at the door? Are you saying hello? Are you feeling welcome? Are you feeling at home? Like, especially myself now, I'm trying to look around different places, being away out of the I say group exercise world for 2 years. Obviously, a lot can happen in 2 years, especially in central London. And so I obviously came back as an amateur again, seeing how everything is. And I obviously trialed some places, and it's still the same. You need to be welcomed in. You need to be feeling good when you get there. If you're feeling like an alien, then you're not going to want to stay. And that was one of the big things I said in my group X. Like, even if it's a new person, welcome in. Hey, Amos, how you doing, man? Yeah, first time, perfect. I'm going to look after you.
Wow.
And just saying stuff like that. Because it is quite scary. going into a group of a big studio or a small one even with these people who've been doing it 400 times and they know what they're doing, it can be scary. Like, that's why I tested myself by going to these random classes, these different studios.
Right.
I won't mention different ones because I'll probably have some negative things to say later on.
Oh,
but,
no.
I'll mention good things about the good studios and I'll mention those by name. But yeah, I went to one literally yesterday and yeah, some of these, it's game like we're saying about PT. Like you talked about the PT before, who came in and he had a lot of ego and he felt like he was the king. And that same with this instructor, came in, didn't care that I was new to this. Just literally wanted to talk about herself the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And those sort of points are really bad in the industry, I feel, because it's like those people who are trying to get into fitness again, especially being January. Like they want to come back into it and they want to go this is my year. Because as you know, people try and they fail a little bit and, you know, we want to try and bring them up again. So I feel like I've gone off a tangent here for a second.
No, you're, you know, like tying it back into that whole actually working with people.
Yeah.
And that part of it not necessarily coming through like on social media, for example. And, you know, when you do get the big ego characters, they're probably more focused on their sort of personal brand, how they come across, and they're less actually focused on like the service that the member or the person joining the class or, you know, the client actually gets. And that's everything, right? Because that's how, if you're not really in it for that, not only, ethically speaking, you probably shouldn't really be, you know, working in that situation, but you'll also like feel really sucky about it. Like you're going to be the person who's always complaining and moaning and saying, oh, this is just draining and I don't like this. When you're really passionate about it and you're like actually excited and you take pride in the actual delivery, you feel awesome. And, you know, it's your work and it's your creativity and it's your art form. And when you get that feedback from like the members and the clients and you're like, okay, great. Yeah.
You get addicted to that. You love that.
Yeah. I was so happy that these people responded really well to it. And then you want to like do better and better and better. And that's what drives you.
Yeah.
Less so than, you know, how many people will be following you on social media.
Yeah. As social media anyway, you have to build it now.
It's a big part of, and, you know, we were talking right at the beginning about like even this podcast and what I learned was so many people were consuming things through their screen. More so than like reading books, or they're still talking to each other and there's still a lot of like word of mouth,
sometimes
office chat and, you know, I've tried this thing or I've tried that thing, but a lot of it's just coming from what they're seeing on social media. And if you want to help people and if you want to, you know, be a part of how we deliver wellness and fitness and health, you know, like nationally or even globally, if you want to go that far, or even locally, quite frankly, then you're going to have to start producing some content. It is going to make you stand out. People are going to be more likely to have conversations with you. And then, you end up being in a better position. And then it's less about like having to refute or deal with somebody else's commentary on fitness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I don't have to worry about what Mike Chang has to say. Hopefully someone is going up to another PT annoying them with what I had to say.
Yeah.
And being like, there's this guy and his name's Jason and he told me X, Y, Z. And it's like, you know, they're kind of like, you know
PT's
what?
like, oh,
F Jason.
God, what has he done?
Jason don't know what he's talking about.
And that brings on to the other thing. Every PT is different.
Yeah.
They have their own like way how they work through this world. Like our fitness journeys will be completely different.
That's true, actually. I haven't really thought about that.
Because you could be the same business, but you got there a different way. 100%.
What was your fitness journey?
Oh, okay. That's
I don't actually know, right? Like,
no, you don't know. It was weird. I started off first. I was working in a pub. I worked in Richmond Hill. I worked for a Young's pub, and I was adamant I was going to be a pub manager.
Okay.
100%. I did a level 2 and a level 3 in college, just as part of they were offering it back. As you know, back in the day, it wasn't as popular as it is now.
Yeah.
And it was just like an add-on to my BTEC sports and exercise science. A bit like that. And I was like, oh, everyone's doing it. Why not? Let's do it. I'm never going to be a PT anyway. So I did all the pub world. I was adamant that I was going to be a pub manager. And then at the time I saw a vacancy it was the place where we work. It wasn't the exact location, but it was in Twickenham.
Okay.
And I thought, do you know what? I'll give it a shot. A fitness coach position, give it a shot. And I did it. And yeah, I started. And again, another thing, I was adamant I was going to be a PT. After that, I was like, there you go, I'm going to be a PT now. But they had these things on the gym floor. If you remember them, I don't know if you were in, I don't know if I can say the company. Can I say the company?
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's not slander, whatever you're about to say.
No, it's not. It's good.
Yeah,
it's good things, and I respect. It's Virgin Active, and I thank them for everything they've done for me anyway. So it's not bad. But they had something called fast classes.
Okay.
And they had these 15-minute classes on the gym floor. 15-minute, that was it. And you'd show you a little bit of kettlebells, a little bit of body weight, a little bit of weights. 15 minutes, that's all you had. And you would drag people off the gym floor who were doing nothing. They were looking at their phones or whatever it was, and you drag them off, and it was just fun.
Wow, that sounds amazing, actually.
It was good fun, and I didn't think anything about it because I was still adamant being PT, because being a fitness coach back then, now they don't have them anymore, but being then, you were like, oh, the PTs are so cool. They look so cool still. They were wearing all black, all sexy looking, and they were abs and all this. Oh, and you were just like, oh, that's so cool. Then I met this one guy who was an instructor there, and I thank him for this to this day, because he probably started my journey out of all of it. And I'll say his name because I still see him as high regard. It's Chris. His name's Chris.
Okay.
Chris Blatchford. If you put the full name in there, we're allowed to put full names.
Yeah, you go for it.
But I see him such a high regard now, and he did something called Les Mills. Now that I don't touch Les Mills now, but it was what got me into it.
Cool.
And he did something called Body Attack, and it was the most aerobic, most jumping around, energetic thing in the world.
Oh no, I know Body Attack.
You know Body Attack.
I know Body Attack.
Doing it at weekends, are you?
Oh yeah, that's my secret.
And it was fun. You came into the studio, and I didn't see it. I saw it from the outside, and everyone obviously at the beginning, Group X. Now it's developed so much, but back then it was like, oh, only women do Group X. Only a few people do Group X. And I went in there, and I loved it. They worshipped him. He came in, like we're talking about celebrities, he came in like he was about to do a rock concert. And I looked at him and I was like, wow, this quiet man came in out of nowhere. He came in like a thunderstorm, like he was playing AC/DC, bit of Akadaka, Thunderstruck on his guitar, but he had no guitar. And it was just him and his microphone, and he just went in and he ruled the room. All those people were there doing exercise. They were there for him. It could have been anything. We could have been in circles doing like roly-polies and all that, but they were there for him. And I loved that. I looked at him and went, I want to be that person.
Wow.
And from then on, I did a load of spin classes. I fluctuated with weight. So I was getting really skinny. Then I was getting chunky with weights, skinny with spin classes and all that. And then I realized I was like, oh, I want to see where this goes. Became Group X manager, not at the place I was working at. Got another chance over in Streatham. Then I worked at Wandsworth. Then I worked at Broadgate. And then I helped around with a few other clubs. And then you saw me at Mayfair.
Well, okay.
And that's when you met me.
That is the way you described, that guy's experience and the whole Group X thing. I don't think a lot of people fully understand that side of it. And
Huge.
I get that to some degree even with, as a personal trainer, you do end up getting a fair amount of respect and admiration from quite a lot of your clients because you've played such a massive role in their sort of journey in their life. And the whole, I observe it from the outside when you look at the group exercise classes, and they definitely have their instructors, and there's one instructor that we know very well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Who are you going to mention now? Like...
he would love me to mention him, I think.
He would.
And
if it's what I think it is anyway.
Yeah, he, you know, I always found it quite remarkable. Yeah, like we're talking about a gentleman named Simon Avis.
Oh, Mr. Aogi himself.
And Simon is like one of the most loved humans in the club that I work at, and that, you know, you used to work at. He, you know, every year he would be like, you know, group exercise instructor of the year. He just like, he exuded this sort of social ambiance. Like everybody knew him, he knew everybody, and he reveled in it, and he loved it, and he was always, he loves it, and he was always on. And, you know, is he like this massive social media influencer? No,
but he does post every day.
He does post every day. He does do content. But yeah, like in person, right? Like there could be a social media influencer with 150,000 followers, literally a meter away from him, and like his radius, everybody would be gravitating towards him.
100%. He's got the biggest heart,
right? So like he definitely like really embodies that whole. Like, yeah, you can hear him a mile off as well. He's like a big, loud character.
But that brings me on to, I feel, and I think it's definitely worth mentioning, especially working with so many different instructors in my time, you'll probably get the most shyest people being instructors, 100%. Because as soon as you become, and you go on your stage, I did air quotations for the ones who are listening. I feel like, I mean, that's important. They go on their stage, they become who they want to be.
Wow.
100%. And it's something that, again, personal. This is definitely personal. I wasn't as, and I still am a little bit shy. I know it doesn't seem like it, but that's why I created the Viking persona. Because, and I can see a question, Karen.
No, yeah. So talk to me about the Viking persona. So again, for the context of the audience, Jason's name is actually Jason, but his social media handle, and even in person, you are the Urban Viking.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I never actually asked you like what that was. You just suited who you were, so I never questioned it. And anybody kind of like watching the video right now can like
tell a little bit.
Yeah, like looks like a Viking, right? But yeah, what was the sort of inspiration? What's that all about?
So before all that, my nickname was the Argonaut.
Okay.
So Jason the Argonaut. And if you know the story about Jason the Argonaut.
If anybody at my age was definitely growing up watching those movies every year.
Yeah, I was going to say and there's so many different variations of it to a point. And the one I saw, which made me fall in love with it, one, Jason, of course, I was like, it's meant to be.
Yeah.
But he was a hero trainer. So he was one who got the criminals. He trained them up to be heroes to steal that fleece and bring it back.
Right.
So he made these people who got shunned by society. Everyone hated them and all that. And he trained them up to become heroes. And I loved that. And that was my PT sort of selling, the hero trainer. And one of my mates still calls me hero trainer. It's very cringe, but it still is at the sustenance of why I like doing PT. You turn someone who feels like you're not just getting them physically better, but mentally better. You're getting them all aspects, bringing them up. And that's what I did. So I was like, oh, Jason the Argonaut. But when I was moving into London, so when I was being studio manager, one of the people at the company saw me and wanted me to come to London, central London, and start playing with the big boys. And so one thing he said to me was, like, if you are not tough in this industry, especially at this level, you will get eaten alive. And I thought, I was like, whoa, being quite fairly anxious as it is anyway, I went to myself, oh, I'm going to get eaten alive. instantly, because that's what you think, isn't it? Half the time, you're like, oh God, what am I expecting? And a random member came to me one day, and I went to the barber, and he said to me, he didn't say to me, he cut my hair wrong. So he cut it a bit shorter than normal into more of a mohawk, because it never used to be this mohawky. It was a little bit wider.
Right.
And I was like, oh, whatever, it is what it is. It's what happened. Someone said to me, I look like a Viking. And I was like, whoa. And how do you see a Viking? Strong, powerful, takes what they want, like looks after their clan, just does what they need. They train hard, they're vicious, they're scared, but they also look after their people. And I was like, I admire that. I want to be a Viking. And I'm a big believer as well of saying, if you want to be something, you've got to start acting like it. Okay. You want to be like all these Mike Thurstons and all that. Unfortunately, you got to start acting like it. You want to be this good person, you got to start acting like it. And so the persona just absorbed me.
Wow. I think it's really interesting because, you've obviously got your own origin story.
I love it.
And I imagine then a lot of, the really good group exercise instructors, they all kind of create their character and their persona, and then they kind of take that to the stage with them, and they entertain the group with that character. And, I've seen it quite a few times, and you're right, some of them are like really shy outside of that setting, and they're very sort of like a whole different human being.
Exactly.
But then they turn it on and they become this thing, and I do watch them kind of like, they do feel very empowered by it. It's also their own journey of like building confidence within themselves and developing as a person, and it's probably one of the reasons why it's got such a, it's so popular, not only as a form of fitness for people to get involved with, but so many people that wanted to be instructors maybe tried personal training, and it wasn't quite clicking for them, but then they got into Group X, and especially because they loved the music, they loved the vibe, they loved the energy.
That's where I am.
And yeah, it's quite a thing. And I've been very critical of Group X in my career over the years, and like maybe in the last 5 or 6 years, I've noticed it shifted a lot, and it went. I always knew it was going to become the most dominant way people engage with exercise.
Yeah.
But I just really wanted to see it get a lot better than what it was. And you mentioned like Les Mills earlier, and for me, Les Mills wasn't quite cutting it. It wasn't for everybody.
And I still believe that to this day. It's a great experience, and some people just go for experience.
There was things I liked about it, but yeah, since it's Group X has opened up a lot more, it's become a little bit more S&C, strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
I do think CrossFit had a role to play with, getting it out to wider masses and getting people into, different forms of exercise rather than just like, jumping up and down and using the, 5 kilo Les Mills bars or whatever.
Please don't open that.
It's evolved. I think the instructors have continued to evolve with it, and it's been it's in a much better place. I think it's going to continue to go in a really positive direction, and I think more people are learning about different forms of fitness, even from the cardiovascular standpoint. People are getting much more into like the data and tracking themselves, and it's probably another conversation that I think is worth having. With you in particular, I suppose there's something quite interesting that a lot of instructors maybe don't have so much of, and that superhuman strength.
What are you starting now?
And I know you're probably like sitting there going, no, I'm like weak. But the reality of the situation is, you lift some heavy weights, man. Unless we're talking like fake plates in great production.
I wish. That'd be nice. That'll make things so
But I actually have seen you in person. So, and obviously there's the whole Viking persona, but
Yeah.
like all of that aside, actually training and being really strong is not something that's easy to do, right? It's really hard. Which means you got to take somebody who's really willing to kind of go through the difficulty of it all to actually get to, you probably weigh just under 100 kilos,
About 92 at the moment.
about 92.
Kilos,
What would you say is your deadlift 1 RM?
260 at the moment.
260. So we're talking about well over 2.5 times body weight. That's for, again, context of the audience, like it's not normal to do that. And it gets really, really, really hard to be able to lift that much. And, you're obviously doing a bunch of other lifts. I've seen you engage in strongman competitions as well.
Yes.
On top of that, you're not just all lifting, you've got a bunch of conditioning that you get involved with. So
Yeah. I'm a light strongman and a heavy CrossFitter.
wow.
That's basically how I see myself, the underdog in every competition.
What like how did you get there?
So I see myself as a strongman, really, because I just enjoy the movements, posterior chain sort of movements, basically your back. Those sort of movements. I just love strongman. It's a different vibe. There's no one competing against. We're obviously all competing, but the upbringing and everyone's always cheering for everyone, and it's just a massive show of strength. And it's just something, as you know, deadlifts being one of them, is just, I love it. I won my last one. I'm officially Berkshire's strongest man.
Wow, congratulations.
Until July, when I get challenged again. So I'll be doing that one in July. But I also love the buzz of doing conditioning, just running around, ski erg and all that. Not very good since I weigh so much. But yeah, it's just a good mix. If you want to do something well, you've got to just stick on it. So if I wanted just to be great at strongman, I would have to stay at strongman.
Yeah.
But I love a bit of something else as well. And I won't say the word hybrid because that word's been thrown around way too much.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know, most people listening to this probably won't even know what hybrid means.
Yeah.
So again, for the context of the audience.
So hybrid now is being stated. When I said hybrid first, and I think I said it, I probably wasn't the first person to say it, but I said it. I was like, I like a bit of everything. I like doing a little bit of weightlifting. I like a little bit of strongman. I like doing a little bit of running. I like doing a little bit of CrossFit conditioning, gymnastic movements, handstand walks, stuff like that. I like a bit of everything. But now hybrid's now turning into that sort of mindset of high rocks. So running, lifting a bit of weights, stuff like that. And I won't talk too much about that because I'm sure there's so many schools of thought on that and what it is. But I just like a bit of everything. But I like to dominate more in strength because I feel like strength is going to be there with you, especially for longevity of your life. Like, if you want to get someone fit, sit them on a bike for a while. Obviously, that's the basics of it. But strength, so many different aspects, planes, ways of making someone stronger, either in one movement or functional, picking something off the floor. It's silly little things. It's like I was talking to, and obviously women in this industry, a lot of them are getting better with strength, but there's still that sort of stigma. And I was talking to one at one of the boutiques that I work at, and she didn't want to pick up more than 2 kilograms on the weight. And she was a mother. And I said, how much does your baby weigh? Does it weigh more than 2 kilos? She went, yeah. And I went, I bet you wouldn't pick him up. I bet you'd pick him up without even a second thought. Yeah. How much does your baby weigh roughly? And she gave me a number. I can't think of the number, but it was more than 2 kilos, I tell you that now. And she picked it up with no issues.
Hasn't got jacked yet.
No, I'm still trying to get jacked. Like, I mean, that's the whole idea. Like, yeah, it's a mixture of diet and weights and programming and stuff like that you do, as you know.
So, did you start off really strong, or did you kind of find like, okay, you're kind of at a normal level starting out, and then you've kind of like stuck at it for such a long time, and you've had the odd sort of spike of strength here and there. Because some people, you get like a 16-year-old walks into the gym, never lifted a weight in their life, and immediately they're like comfortably benching 100 kilos, right? So you get these sort of like genetic freaks.
The Haddies of the gym. Yeah.
Haddy will be happy to hear you say that.
He won't train for months, and then suddenly he's on bench press. He's repping my PR like nothing.
And then you get other people that if they miss a week of training, it's almost like they're back to square one, which are the Musses of the world, quite frankly.
No, I don't believe that.
Do you think you were like, did you start off really well, or has it been like a really like arduous journey to kind of like scrimp your way there?
Yeah, so in terms of fitness journey, I was actually really big. I was really fat at first.
Right.
And funny, not anyone really knows this, but basketball got me into training.
Okay.
And I did a lot of basketball when I was in school. And I just, over one summer, it just dropped off me because I loved it. I think I'm very obsessive. I think that's
fair.
I pick one thing and I'm just focused on it. I think that's my big issue. And basketball, I loved it. I can't do it as much now. I can. I still try with my brothers, but I'm not as fast as I was.
I did not know that about you.
No, not many people do. I don't. Well, this is why we talk. And I lost so much weight, so much so that I got the nickname steroids when I was in school.
Okay.
Yes, because when you're young and that kids, you don't know what it is. You think it's steroids. It's all this and no. So I lost a lot of weight, and then I got introduced to a gym. I don't know. I can't remember how old I was now, but my mate's mum worked in a gym, and I went there. We trained some weights, and I went, I like it. Then obviously I went off to the pub world. Came back and I was like, I need to start training again properly. And as we start doing a bit of bodybuilding because that's what we think we know and all that.
Yeah, good old bench press and bicep curls.
Oh yeah, it was more bicep curls than bench press to tell you that now back then. And then I got into a weird powerlifting thing, and I was quite good, like posterior strength. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Very good. And then that just disappeared because it wasn't cool. Powerlifting wasn't cool. And I will say I'm a sucker for it. I was with the trends. So much so that, do you remember a fitness concept called Zoo?
Only in retrospect. So not at the time that it would have been popular.
Yeah.
But later on down the line, like people were talking about it. So I got some sense of what was going on. And I think it was definitely a very Virgin Active thing.
It was bigger than that, but obviously in the UK it was brought in by Virgin Active.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So because I hadn't been I wasn't working in commercial gyms at the time, so it didn't really cross my path until I started working in commercial gyms, and then people were talking about Zoo, and yeah, like it was very sort of. Actually, I don't know. I kind of got the impression it was very sort of like all these body weight movements.
Is probably, I think everyone needs to do it once.
Right.
100%, but at the time it was a very clan, like a special club.
Okay.
And I was told, I was like, we'll get all this strength. And I didn't really know what strength was back then properly. I had a qualification, but that qualification was nowhere near as in depth as they're doing nowadays. That's why I think everyone who's done it past or before 2012 or 2010 needs to do it again with the way they're doing things and the way they're doing in depth of anatomy and that, but that's another thing. But so I thought, all strengths are the same. Stupid. All strengths are the same. And in terms of that, I did everything. Fly in my face. Everything about Zoo, all body weight, everything. I was sweating, dripping. Again, skinny Jason comes back again, loses all his strength again. I get a little bit scared, start putting on the weight again. In terms of what it is animalistic movements, bodyweight movements done in a very high intense way. And it's working on not just one plane of motion, it's full. So it's obviously bench press, you're working in one direction. This would be a full, I was going to say 360, but your arms can do that, but not in one movement. But yeah, all inspired by animal movements.
Okay.
Definitely should try it one day if you feel like it. It is, yeah. I did a lot of it during lockdown because it was just intense. It was a great sweat, and I do some of it still to this day, but nowhere near at the intensity more of a mobility strength sort of aspect rather than just doing that. But it was a good, and I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to say cult. It was a cult, and you are part of the crew.
Do you
Why is
know,
he doing it?
so many things end up like that. I think, CrossFit initially it had that kind of like very cultish thing. Bodybuilding certainly has its own.
It definitely
sort of,
does.
like massive bubble to it.
I think you need to, but that brings in community, and I think if you're not part of the community, you see it as a cult. Like I just said there, I'm not a part of it anymore. But when you're in it, you're like, oh, it's my community, 100%. And I think, like we said with the CrossFit, you're like, oh, it's a cult. It's a cult. But when you're in it, you're like, oh no, it's great. It's a community.
I think we look at things a little bit more, like the community aspect certainly became a bit more obvious like later on down the line when it got a bit more like mainstream and normalized. So many fitness trends kind of come and go to some extent, and people always kind of latch on and really like put their
what resonates with them.
Yeah, they put their name on it, and it's like, yeah, so I'm all about this. I guess I don't really do that so much now with anything. I'll kind of do my best to be a bit detached and not like go with any particular wave. I mean, the last community I would have been part of would be the evidence-based community, and then everything was just about what the scientific research was saying. And it was almost very, very disregarding of any sort of practical experience that was happening in real time. And then, you got a little bit too lost in, if this research paper came out and said that we need to train, the biceps in the lengthened position to get the maximum amount of hypertrophy, then all of a sudden all the exercises on biceps had to be in the lengthened position. And so like you was just getting a little bit...
Everything has to be efficient in everything.
And, it doesn't really work that way, because even research studies are only done within certain conditions, and in real life, in real time, like those conditions aren't matched. And all it's meant to be is just some amount of data to give you a little bit more of an insight and an inkling. But
100%.
You always kind of have to make your own sort of decisions on the day, depending on the individual, depending on the context of the situation. And there's a lot of stuff that just hasn't been studied yet either. So long as something's kind of going in the right direction, and then there's the people element of it as well. Are they happy to do what they're doing? And not just kind of like shoveling them into this box that they don't really want to be in, and then the adherence is low, so there's no consistency. So like, things like, I mean, one of Virgin Active's core values is fun, and it wasn't something that I really had a lot of emphasis on, but it makes such, like, having watched people engage in exercise now, fun is a huge part of getting people involved.
And that brings you back to Group X again, with experience. If you're finding it fun, you're coming back to it.
People love it. People obviously love zoo, and people love CrossFit, people love bodybuilding, people love football, people love basketball. It really is like finding things that you love, and it's okay that it's not the most optimal thing. It's okay that, so-and-so is telling you like, oh, their thing is better. It's just a thing that you're happy to kind of stick to consistently for a long period of time. And it's probably, to go back to the original question, how you got really effing strong in the first place.
I just love it.
You just love lifting.
It's fun. It's fun. It's good. Makes me feel good. And that's it, really. And again, that goes back to the fun.
Would you have any sort of advice for somebody else who finds it really fun but isn't at a 260 deadlift right now? Right, that they're maybe kind of like starting out, and they're not seeing, like, they scroll through their social media and they see all these guys lifting all these big weights and squatting 200 kilos and deading over 200 and benches up like at 180 or something like that, and they're kind of like in the gym with their 60 kilo barbell, kind of just about scraping out 4 or 5 reps. What do you say to that person?
Everyone started somewhere. It's true. And I've heard that being repeated a lot. And I think it's used a lot in the bodybuilding as well, isn't it? In the sort of world. Everyone started somewhere. No one just magically got big out of nowhere. Shift the eyes.
No comment.
You would like to think that you still got to work, though. You still got to work, but yeah, that's another subject again. We're going off. See, I like to get off the subject, and I should be a politician. I can just go away and change the subject. But in terms of advice, know what you want to achieve, and make a plan and be patient. That's probably the biggest thing now, being patient, because everyone's going to post their biggest lift, their best lifts as well. I'm a criminal to it as well. I won't post my fails all the time. I post them every now and again because I think like people need to see it. But people go on that to scroll to look for motivation, when maybe you need to start learning about building discipline rather than motivation.
Wow.
Because discipline will get you there every day. Motivation will only get you there when the trends are good on TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah.
Like knowing that you have to get up every morning, I have to go for this run, because I know it's going to feel good. I know it's going towards my goals, and it's the only time I've got in the day before work or wherever it is you're doing. And I think discipline will get you there so much more. But it doesn't mean there's not a place for motivation. Motivation will get you started, 100%.
Well, you do something that is it's very primal, and it I guess it lends itself to the motivational aspect of the experience that you're trying to create.
Yeah.
And it obviously lends itself to your brand. I'm not going to ask you to do it right now unless you want to, but
what is
you
it
you have a trademark sound that you make. It's always it's not too dissimilar to something that we expect Santa Claus to say.
Oh no, I've stopped doing that since then.
But yeah, it was definitely, it was something part of your show. I mean, I don't know if you're happy to give us a rendition.
It was very, especially near Christmas time, everyone said it was like Santa, if you remember. So where we used to work, it was like open plan, if you remember the grid floor.
Well, I'm still there.
Oh yeah, still there, yeah. Grid floor, and everyone on that gym floor could hear you. And having the microphone on, it'd be like, oh, in between, which now, the more I say it, makes me sound more like it. But my sort of, when I'm trying to teach classes, I call them warriors.
Right.
Because when you step in that room, we're training. We're training for life, to defeat life, or at least survive this crazy thing we call life. And when you're in there, I don't want you to care what you look like, what you're sweating. If you're sweating more than the next person, I don't care. You give your best effort, you leave there proud, done. That's another training day done. And I think that warrior aspect should be replicated for everyone, because we're all in the same war. We're all trying to do our life as best as we can. And we all have different little mini battles to lose weight, to feel healthier, to mentally feel clearer. So many things, but we all have to train to get there. That training could be as little as walking. It could be as much as running a 70k marathon sort of trail thing. I saw that on Instagram. Someone did that. I think that's Fergus Crawley or someone. Yeah, very impressive. But everyone has their own little limit to it. Whatever it is you can do, it's that sort of warrior aspect I try and bring every time you turn up to one of my classes. Like, you will leave feeling like a warrior. And that's what I want every day. That's another reason why I love coaching. You bring them in, they've had the worst day of their life. They leave feeling like they can conquer anything. Oh. I feel like that was a full stop point there.
The worst day of your life. When we talk about fitness and, you know, the way social media represents it, it's very much like, you know, how much weight somebody can lift, how good they can make themselves look. One of the things I think probably isn't drawn as, to some extent a little bit, but not as much, is the sort of mental health aspect and how fitness helps people like cope with difficult times in their life.
Agreed.
Has that been, I'm going to assume because you're a human being and because in your words, you're doing this crazy thing called life, that you have had some difficult times in your life. How would different people obviously respond differently? Some people might stop, right? And they stop working out, they stop doing everything. Maybe they fall into some really bad habits and I don't know, getting to like drink and drugs and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
During like maybe more challenging times of your life, like how did fitness play a role for you?
So in terms of that, I've obviously, as we all know, but we've all had ups and downs in our roller coaster life. Not if you're very lucky, if you had a great life throughout up to this point, but it's always been there for me. It's always there. Like, there's no point where I'm like, I've gone to the gym session, even if I didn't feel like I wanted to go gym. I did a little bit. I left going, I still feel the same. No, I feel so much better. I feel even a little bit better. And that 10% that you get from going to the gym, I feel can obviously decide how the rest of your day goes, how everything else goes. And it's always just been there for me. I feel like I've done a little bit of therapy in the past and stuff like that.
Right.
And it is good to talk. And I feel like 100% you should be talking. But sometimes you need something to push you to talk. And I feel like training, especially if you train with someone, it just opens that door. You're letting everything out. It's the most animalistic thing to do. Just move, get around there. And that in itself is a chemical reaction in the body that fires either endorphins, and those little endorphins could just make you look a little more positive, a little more. And it won't work for everyone, unfortunately. But it is, and it has been shown, as you can, I'm sure you looked at a few studies, it makes a huge difference to people's lives. And again, that goes back to the fun again. Some of these people don't even realize they're doing exercise half the time. Wow. They just need to walk in the studio, dance around, bit of Les Mills attack. They're sweating, they're drenched, and they feel a buzz. I love doing that to people. That's why I do this, 100%. You come in, again, you just need to turn up. Just turn up. Turn up, get here, and I'll look after you. I joked around today when I was doing an instruction for my class, like, you just need to turn up here. Well done for coming here on a Sunday. Amazing. Like, some people are still in bed. You made it here. Now you're here. Let me take care of you. You're my children. Let's go.
That is so funny that you say that, because before coming here today, Jason.
Go on. You do more to be here.
Getting you in, you kind of represented the people that come to your classes. That you weren't too sure what to expect.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's my whole job, is for you to calm down and I'll take care of it. Yeah. And we're just gonna
You're a very good host.
Thank you very much. We're gonna focus
big cashew nuts and everything.
The cashews are a secret only for the guests. But yeah, it's literally that, right? It's like all you have to do is come and kind of just be yourself, and you just have to enjoy it. And in a lot of ways, that's what exercise, I've observed and learned that to be the case. And so now I don't necessarily need to, follow a trend or impose, optimal strategies onto people. I'm kind of just paying attention to the person in front of me and being like, all right, what would be the best thing for you to do? And if you don't know yet, then that's fine. We'll try a few different things, but we'll definitely find the thing that you like doing.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I pick up on that glint in your eye that you're like, yeah, this is it. I love deadlifting, right? Bang. Well, I'm going to make everything, not everything, but I'm going to make so much stuff like the training about the deadlift, because I know that's where you're going to get the most wins. That's where you're going to build your consistency. And then you've got a lifetime ahead of you to explore anything and everything else that you want to. And, we've gone through your fitness journey, for it to start at basketball and then, land on being, was it Berkshire?
Berkshire's strongest man. Yeah.
Berkshire's strongest man. Like,
At the moment.
what? But what an unusual jump, right? Like, I started out in basketball and I ended up becoming so strong that, you win competitions. It's finding anywhere you want to be. And I think that's what we need more of, is less barriers to entry, less criticisms of,
Correct.
different ways of doing things, and more just like, would you like to try this?
Yeah.
And if not, let's, there's a bunch of other things. I mean, this is big. I say this as somebody who's spent a lot of time, unfortunately, knocking a lot of other ways of exercising, and I'm trying not to now, in spending less time knocking other ways of exercising, because that could be the way that person enters exercise. And yeah, even if that thing is absolute nonsense, let them get started, let them get moving, let them get the benefits of exercise, and then if it's nonsense to them, they'll figure that out and navigate and maneuver away. And generally, people tend to, as they get more experience, find better ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything that comes to mind anyway, because I'm now at this stage where, as long as you're moving, it's all good.
Yeah.
Literally. And as humans, we will protect ourselves enough to kind of be like, well, I'm not going to do anything like that stupid. You can hurt yourself. There are risks, but
of course,
it's unlikely. There's just a natural that I'm not going to put my hand in the fire. So, like, this massively, you don't have to be massively over concerned about like whether this is a good idea or that's a bad idea. Just try it.
Yeah. And that goes back to, and I feel what's the first word of PT?
Personal.
Wow. Well, it sounds silly enough, but you've got to make it personal to that person, because we're all different.
I probably have ruined it a little bit, but I did mention in a previous episode that I've started to differentiate between personal trainers and professional trainers. So, and even thinking back now, like I don't need to be doing that. It's perfectly fine to be a personal trainer. It's perfectly fine for me to call myself a personal trainer.
Yeah.
I've maybe spent a little bit too much time underplaying that I do create fun for the clients that I work with.
I've seen them smile.
And there is a massively personal aspect to it, and I've probably tried to pretend like it's all professional and it's all about the training, but
it's human nature.
It's human nature, and that's probably my own personal issues that I need to unpack as to why
too emotional. That's it.
Guarded, no, they're going to hurt me.
Yeah, you were resisting when I tried to say hello to you when you came in.
Oh well, I've still got a lot of walls up. All right, Jason. Thank you so much for coming down, man.
Been a pleasure.
You're another individual that I'm hoping we get to talk to again. We're some of the guests that we've had on so far are people that are our friends, and so I definitely want to get a situation where we've got conversations happening with everybody